Hello and welcome to another episode of the Gold Coast Speakers. I am Carly Woods and today I'm going to be interviewing Craig Tulczyn. How exciting. Now, I've actually heard Craig speak and he is a wonderful man. Not only on the stage, I've seen him a lot online as well. And you've actually been a big fan of mine for a long time, which I absolutely love, haven't you,
Yep,
Craig?
I have indeed, yep. Yes.
And I am so excited to speak to you today. So Craig is a speaker and he's got a wealth of knowledge. So I think we just get straight into it. So a lot of people have spoken about personal growth, Craig, but your work, it seems to have come from like a really lived experience. So my first question to you, what has led you to start working in this area and focus on helping people who've lost direction on their purpose or identity?
Yeah, good question. There's a lot of different reasons why people do it, but what led me to this was one of the biggest things was an injury I suffered 8.5 years ago, back in late 2017, because it completely changed the whole course of my life. And it, it really played with my head, so to speak, having to deal with many different factors, such as, because it was a workplace injury, I had to deal with an employer who, anyone who's been through that, employers don't really care about you. You're just a number. I had the work cover, having to deal with work cover, having to deal with specialists, lawyers, all sorts of things. And it just really played havoc. And I came to the realization many years later, like a few years back, that there's a lot of people going through this sort of stuff. And what it did to me, I know what people are going through. So that's why I sort of really want to help people be able to get through traumatic events that really completely change their life course. Uh,
And from your experience, like, what are the most common situations that cause people to lose maybe like a sense of their direction or identity in life?
Look, there's a lot of different factors, but a lot of it is you just seem to lose your whole sense of purpose
Mm.
because you feel that you're all alone, that everyone's out, like everyone's against you, that you're fighting a battle on your own. Even when it comes to family, you feel as if your family don't understand, and you just sort of you seem to bottle it up. And the typical human nature for us is, especially with males, is we keep stuff bottled up. We don't express our feelings openly. Um, like women seem to find it a bit easier to talk to their friends, whereas blokes, yeah, we sort of bottle it up. I think it's a generational thing that we're taught onwards, that we just keep things to our chest, don't air our emotions. So it's probably that sense of feeling alone and no one knowing what's going on, no one understanding.
Did you feel alone?
Oh yeah, very alone, very alone. I thought my wife didn't really understand, but she was very supportive the whole time. But it took me a while to get to realize that, yes, she was there to support me and very supportive and understanding. Um, Especially after all that I put her through with all, you know, because we don't realize when you feel like that, you become snappy, you become standoffish, you seem to push people away. The
I think when
family,
anybody's
friends.
going through any kind of injury, it does make
Mm.
you an angry person sometimes, you
It
know?
it does, it can, yeah. It can very much so. Um,
How
and,
did you deal with that?
um, Over time, I just look, I nearly hit rock bottom. Well, when my rock bottom was like nearly finishing everything. And that was a bit of a turning point. It made me realize that, I needed to actually speak to someone, basically get out, and I needed to take that step to speak to someone. And I did go and speak to a professional, and that just stepped me on the path of working on myself, my own mindset, my own personal development in my own way. As you and many other people would realize, is a lot of people talk about personal development, and a lot of people just focus on one area, do this, do that. But I found that everybody needs to find their own path with it. It's not a one size fits all. You've got to find what resonates and what works for you as far as that
So,
goes.
2 questions. First of
Yep.
all, do you mind me asking what your injury was and how long it took you to get to that moment?
Okay, so I suffered a knee injury. I twisted my knee. At first, it was just, we thought it was going to be a simple fix. But 8.5 years on, I've had 7 operations. And the most recent one was this year. It was 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, saw
So
that.
I'm actually, so I've just come out of, I'm 4 weeks post-op
How
number
are
7
you? You
operation.
okay?
Yeah, look, doing fine. It's obviously the amount of operations over the years, it takes longer to heal and recover. But I'm in a good place. I understand what the process is, and I've got people around me who support me, and I've got a clearer head this time. Like from the first couple of operations, it was just very clouded. As I said, I felt no one was supportive, had no one to talk to, dealing with all the legal side. And it's,
There's a certain amount of things that you can't do or be seen to do when you're getting insurance from work cover. I've heard other people speak about that. Going
yeah.
into other jobs, for instance. Can you explain a bit about that?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of people say, well, like they have the insurance companies send out investigators to spy on you and that. Um, I never really worried about that because I did have a physical injury. I was always open with it. Um, Everyone knew, like the employer, the insurer, they all knew what was going on. So it was not like, it wasn't a case of I could do things, but I wasn't. I was trying to hide it. I could, like, there were things I just couldn't do. Um, but I have heard a lot of, like, there's a lot of people, I think, when it comes to the psychological injury, because that's something that you can't see. There's a lot.
Explain more about that because that is
Yeah.
interesting. I'm sure there's lots of people going through what you've gone through.
Yes. Yeah. Well, obviously you've got your physical injury, which is, like a physical impairment that people can actually see, but the psychological, no one can actually see that. So there's always going to be that doubt. People don't understand that there is such a thing as that psychological injury. There's a lot of it happening more and more in the workplaces with the bullying side of things. People get bullied and they just, it just goes on and on and on. But there's a lot of change within the Workplace Health and Safety Acts that they're trying to squash that. But with the psychological, they're always, people, I think it makes it worse for people if they've got that fear that there's somebody watching them, that if they step outside, that they're showing that they can do this and do that, that they're not, don't have an injury, like a psychological impairment. Um, from my perspective, like from what I went through, the psychological side was just the feeling of being alone and having the insurer just constantly hounding you, the employer trying to get you back to work, telling you got to do this, you got to do that when you couldn't. And dealing with specialists, because when you come in this side of things, you go to a specialist who gives you good news, so to speak, like he's on your side. Then you go to an insurer specialist who's dead set against everything. So you're fighting a losing battle there. And it just all plays on your head. And when it drags out over time, it's just like, oh, give me strength.
Especially
It's,
for something that you actually really have no control over.
mm,
First of all, no control over your injury. Secondly, no control over the actions of the insurers and the length of
yep,
time it's taking. So
yep,
that must take a mental toll on you. So
yep.
getting to your pivotal moment, when was that?
Um, to be truthful, I think it would have been, I would say about 4 years ago, when we actually relocated from northwestern New South Wales up to the Gold Coast. We just decided, no, it's going to be a whole new start for us. Everything's going to be new. I just had a full total knee replacement, So everything was going good. Everything was fine. Everyone had backed off by that stage. And then I started actually going down the road of further development within myself. I actually went through and did NLP training, and then went on to do master practitioner NLP training, and that completely changed the whole course of everything for me, my whole mindset, my whole outlook, and that drove me down the road of wanting to really help people going through traumatic events, because apart from injury, like you go through people who go through divorces, like which I've been through myself, that's very traumatic in itself too. Like, especially when there's kids involved and you can't, all of a sudden you've got your kids there, next minute they're not there. And, yeah, workplace issues like with the bullying, etc. Like there's a lot of different traumatic events that really affect people the same, but different, if you know what I mean.
Totally. Everyone takes different information on and personal struggles in a different way. But you also support businesses and organizations with their staff, don't you? How do
Yes.
you help them do that?
Well, basically, just by running programs like that teach their staff that there are ways of getting through their problems, because it comes back to the same thing that people feel like if somebody's having problems outside of work, say someone's like going through a marriage breakdown or a relationship breakdown, as much as you want to keep it out of work, keep it separate from work, it will find a way of creeping in. That happened to me when I went through a divorce 25 years ago. But just teaching people how to be able to keep it separate, how to move on, how to get past it and be able to function, to pull themselves out of the doldrums, like lift themselves up in different ways, because a lot of the time you'll sink down, you'll regress, you'll go quiet, you won't talk to people, you'll be very unsociable when it comes to workplace. And that will have an effect from the employer side, because the employer will think, well, okay, this person's not really interested in work anymore. Their work ethics are going downhill, all that sort of stuff. So it can have adverse effects in that way. Then they could end up losing their job, or the morale of the workplace will go down. Worst case is they're not focusing properly and they have an accident at work. The sake becomes a safety issue. Just try and bypass all that, like get people to understand, they're not alone. There are people out there to talk to, help them through things, and different techniques that they can get themselves through everything.
So many people struggle on the inside but don't show it on the outside. Why do you think so many people hide that struggle?
A lot of it comes down to, I believe, it's one of the things biggest things is embarrassment, because they don't want to show their emotions, show a weakness, a weak side. It's like
Is it
it's
both the
embarrassing.
same in men and women?
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it is more so in the men. Like, as I said earlier, like women seem to, a lot of women, not all, a lot seem to be, if they've got not like a good group of friends of girlfriend, like a group that they can associate with, they can openly talk. A lot of them seem to be able to openly talk to their friends about their problems, etc. Whereas men don't. Like, I know growing up my era, we were taught toughen up, keep it on your chest, don't express your emotions. It's not right. As I say, there are a lot of women that can't talk to people, and they do suffer the same thing. Like, they just regress. They just sort of find, becoming in it, go into their little shell. So, like, I think embarrassment is one of the reasons why that no one does. Pride and a fear of judgment, that's a big one, because we're very judgmental people. Like, humans are very judgmental, unfortunately, which not everyone, of course. Like, yeah.
Was. Yeah.
And just different cultures, like workplace culture compared to outside cultures. Yeah, like if you've got a group of mates, they don't understand. They're just busy enjoying their life, and they don't understand you might be going through problems. Yeah,
It's quite easy for people also when they're struggling in whatever situation to blame someone else,
yeah,
blame the partner, blame the
yeah.
family, blame the work. What, how
Mhm.
much, I mean, how much, what do you think like the responsibility of that person has to take it on themselves for rebuilding their own lives?
Look, as harsh as this might sound, the responsibility falls wholly and solely upon us. It's
I agree.
yes, there are factors that cause these problems, but the more we want to lay blame to others or other reasons, other people, we're never going to fix ourselves. We are the only ones that can fix ourselves, that can get ourselves back on track. So by laying blame, like by constantly blaming another person for what's going on, it's never going to fix us. We're just going to stay in that mold of blame. We get negative, miserable, and that. So I have learnt over the years that it's all up to me to get myself back on track. It's all me, no one else. It's my responsibility.
And
So
I'm just
yeah,
curious, when you noticed that, how did it make you feel when you decided, you know what, actually, I'm the only person that can fix this? How did it make you
um,
feel?
it was just like, holy crap! I've wasted all this time blaming people for this and that. I've been miserable, negative. Like, it's like wow, it was a real eye opener.
Oh, I just got
It,
goosebumps then. I
it
did.
was. It
It's
was.
so easy to be negative.
Oh,
Our general consensus of being a human is to derive towards
yeah,
negative
it
perceptions of
is.
everything, and it's a huge thing for someone to take on that responsibility and think, "Hang on, everything I'm doing is my
Mm.
own fault."
Exactly, exactly. Like, as I said, there's factors involved that make that happen, but it's my fault. It's my fault whether it keeps going that way,
And
you
you've
know?
worked with people in quite high pressure industries like mining and
Mhm.
construction and
Yep.
FIFO environments. What do they have any unique challenges, do you think, in those industries when it comes to sort of well-being or
Look,
identity or mental health?
probably probably some of the more unique ones is they're isolated. They're more isolated than, say, somebody living on the Gold Coast and working on the Gold Coast. They're home every night, they're around people. When you're
Family.
working FIFO or like working away from home, you're isolated. You might be thousands of kilometres from home in a little camp environment, and judgment becomes judgment escalates in those environments. When you've got a smaller group of people, like it still might be, a few hundred people, but it's a smaller group, and you either fit in or you don't. It's basically that's it. There's no fight, no in between. It's you fit in or you don't. So there's a lot of isolation. And then if you're sometimes you can't actually call home regularly into the phone service. I remember working at one mine site, walking around the camp with my phone, and everybody was doing it, walking around, just trying to find, oh, there's some service. Bang, you stop dead in a spot, and you're talking, and the next minute it drops out. So you got to find service again. It gets really frustrating, but when you can't call home or you call home and your partner at home doesn't want to talk to you, you sort of start thinking worst case scenario. There's the negativity coming out in us, which people who have worked in that industry, it the mining, earth moving construction industry, the FIFO, would be one of the top industries for marriage breakdowns, because they're away from home. People do what do things they're not supposed to be doing, both sides, like playing up on their partner and vice versa. And yeah, so the isolation is the biggest factor because you're so far away, and then your mind starts wandering and what have you. So yeah.
And do they implement things? Obviously, I know that you help businesses, but is it a big thing that these businesses actually implement ways to help with people's mental health, or do they ignore it? What's your perception?
Look, nowadays it's becoming a big thing. There's been legislation like added into the workplace health and safety legislations that employers have got to act on it. They've got to. It's a high priority nowadays, whereas go back 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't as high. All employers seem to have a EAP, an employee assistance
Hmm.
provider, but I've never personally used them. I know people who have, and they said it was a complete and utter waste of time. You talk to someone once, and that was it. They wouldn't want to talk to you again, and that. So, but yeah, times are changing, but it still needs to. I think it needs to take a lot more focus.
And for anybody listening that may be an employer, what kind of things are they looking out for? Because it's really difficult. You're trying to run the business, or you're trying to be a manager of a department or a process or whatever. What kind of advice could you give them if they're listening to this?
Well, if a employee's whole demeanor changes, like if they're bright and bubbly and then all of a sudden they're sort of not the same person as they were, or they're not focused like they used to be, there's got to be some reason for it. And it's probably best to actually for them to just ask them, is everything okay? Rather than assuming that, oh, okay, they're not interested in working here anymore, or they're just over it. They couldn't be bothered. There's generally things that causing that. So they'll change they'll go from being bright and bubbly to just inside their own little shell, or they'll be daydreaming. They won't socialise with others during smoko breaks. They'll be, and as I said, like even their safety side of things will go downhill. They just won't care. They'll just be blasé about everything.
What kind of questions could they be asking?
Well, the biggest one is, is everything okay? You know, and just bring it up that they noticed a change in them. Is there something going on that they want to talk about? When I went through my divorce way back when I realised that as much as I was trying to keep it separate from work, when I realised that it was bringing it into work and it was affecting my work, I went and seen my boss. And he actually said, I've noticed a change in you. But I'd actually decided to go and talk to him before he spoke to me. But and this is why I remember from back then, he had noticed a change in me, but he was thinking that I just wasn't interested anymore. But when I explained what was going on outside of work, he was, okay, rightio, no worries. So that explains a lot. So I think it might have been probably getting to the point where I was going to be dragged in the office and, given my, you would pick your act up or else sort of thing. But it's just, ensuring that they're okay, because everyone's going to be affected in different ways. They might become snappy at other people that they work with, be disengaged, quiet. Yeah, it's just ensuring that they're okay. Ask those questions. Are you okay? Is there something going on outside of work that's on your mind?
I feel like
Without
it could add a layer of pressure to that person to want to not even speak about it anymore. The layer of,
sorry.
the pressure of being at work and
Yep.
not being able to talk about it and
Yep.
trying to be the person that they were before. Like if somebody is listening right now who feels stuck, like they're lost, or, they're lacking confidence or purpose, what would you say to them?
Um, if all right, if somebody's in that position themselves, and if they're at work and a boss or supervisor comes up and asks them, don't be defensive. They're just wanting to ensure that you're okay. Open up, talk to people. If you can't talk to your colleagues, go and talk to your supervisor, because unfortunately that's part of their job. Being a supervisor or a boss, that's part of their job, is the well-being of the staff. So go and approach them. They're not the villain that you might think they are, or the uncaring person. They should be in a position to go, okay, well, look, and offer them some guidance or offer them maybe some contacts of counselling or something, an EAP or someone external to be able to talk to and help them get themselves back on track. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
this. This has been such a nice conversation. Thank you for joining us today, Craig, on the Gold Coast Speakers
Pleasure.
podcast. If anyone's listening and you'd like Craig to speak at your next event right here on the Gold Coast, I can personally recommend Craig as a speaker, and he can deliver something amazing to your audience. Head over to the Gold Coast Speakers directory at goldcoastspeakers.com.au, and you can find all the links and contact details for Craig and a whole range of amazing speakers. Thank you, Craig, for your time today.
My pleasure, Carly. Thank you very much for it. It's been great.
You're welcome. We'll speak soon.
See ya.